You do have an amazing
gosh.
show. It's called the Lexington Business Show, which I've been on.
Yeah.
And I went on earlier this year, and I was really impressed by your questioning, the way you do interviews. So you're probably not used to really being on this side of the interview process where you're the one getting interviewed.
Yeah, I've done plenty of podcasting as a guest and a host. But, to your point, before we got on air, we were just talking about, the difference between podcasting and radio and just how much faster it tends to be. So in this situation, no, I haven't been on the radio a ton. So it's been, it'll be interesting just to kind of feel it out. I'll let you know at the very end how I feel about it.
Well, when you are doing your interviews for the Lexington Business Shows and you're searching for people to interview, who are the types of people that you like to go out and look for to be on that show? Yeah.
So anybody that's a mover and shaker in Lexington, not even just in Lexington, we've started to expand. If you happen to look at the sheet, it's basically we've had Ken Coleman from the Dave Ramsey Show. He's America's career expert.
His co-host.
Yeah. So talked to him a number of months ago now. Rich Redman, who's the drummer for Jason Aldean. He's got like 32 number one hits now on the radio, which is cool. Let's see, Eddie Russell. I mean, I guess technically he's here in Central Kentucky. He's master distiller at Wild Turkey. We've had a number of big name people that are not located necessarily here in Lexington. But, if you happen to be in Lexington, would love to talk to, anybody, again, that's doing something interesting in business or entrepreneurship or has a very interesting story. The reason by the way, for expanding a little outside of Lexington is we're a big enough city where we have plenty to offer. We have tons of things to do. We're also small enough where it seems like different verticals, different industries kind of have a personality of themselves in a little bit of a bubble. And I like the idea of maybe bringing in and injecting some new thoughts from outside people, new influences, new things to maybe think and consider. So that's kind of the role of bringing those outside people.
Yes. So you do want to bring somebody on that's interesting. You don't want to bring on people that are boring or have nothing going on. So what are some of the things that catch your eye? Is it music? Is it movies that people do? Is it just kind of the way they market things? Is it what are you looking for when you're looking for a good guest?
I think it depends on the context. Sometimes I think the business that they're running is really fascinating for whatever that reason happens to be. Sometimes I think it's the individual might have a brand name or just might be doing something that's kind of cool and different or something that can be, it just stands out and maybe inspire other people. With your time on the podcast, like I really enjoy hearing the stories behind the people and not really talking about the business so much. There's plenty of podcasts out there that are business oriented, that are straight up like how-tos. You come in and like, how do you hire better? Well, here's 10 ways to do that. Well, we could do that. But I feel like the personalities and the stories for the people in the room are the things that can do the most for us a lot of times. Because the how-tos don't matter if we're not inspired. The how-tos don't matter if we don't feel confident in ourselves. How do we get confidence? A lot of times we need to see ourselves in other people that have been successful and are successful. We need to see that to be successful, you don't have to have some magic pixie dust put on you, and that's the only way to do it. But that being successful means stumbling and failing, feeling anxiety around choices, making wrong choices and having to learn from them, and hearing those stories from people that have been successful, like a Rich Redman or Ken Coleman or my buddy Marquise Bias. He's like the principal dresser for SNL and putting clothes on the cast members and whatever. And so hearing how in the world do you go from just being a small town kid to being at the very top of your game, like what does that journey look like in the middle? That's what I want to hear about.
Oh, that's fascinating too. I love a good journeyman story, somebody who has a whole journey attached to their career, because when you hear about these young artists making it big, it's fascinating in itself. But I think what's even more interesting is hearing somebody who has been at it for a long, long time and they don't get their success until later in life. I was listening to a Howard Stern interview the other day with John Hamm, the actor from Mad Men. If you remember that show, it was like dominating for years at the Emmys, the Golden Globes. It was the show to watch.
Right.
But John Hamm never had a role that stood out to anybody before that. Bryan Cranston with Breaking Bad never really got famous until he got to be like 50 years old. So just the people that don't get success until their 40s or 50s, that's a journey that they have to tell and they've been on. So I think I feel you. I get you on that.
Yeah. Well, and, I brought up some bigger names, but of course there's been predominantly more local people that have been guests.
Yes.
And I think it's also important to be able to be inspired and see yourself in some of the other people that are around you that are literally maybe even competitors to what you do, and just kind of hear those stories about what it's like to be a mom and have to battle, doing mom duty and also being an entrepreneur. All of those kind of things, I think, it's a Lexington Business Show. It's still about business, but it's more about the people behind the business, because I think that's what ultimately the people obviously drive what happens with the business.
Yeah, and when you had me on, I was wondering, what in the world is he wanting to have me on for? What do I have to offer? And I am curious, what is it about me that made you say, okay, I want to know what Adam Banks has to say on this show?
Well, you have a platform that most people will never have, which is a radio program, right?
Right.
Which is also a podcast.
Yes.
And a lot of people try podcasts, they get to like episode number 3 and they quit.
Yes.
So you have a platform that a lot of other people maybe aspire to have, or they put the platform on a platform or on a pedestal.
Yes.
Like we know what radio is because we turn it on in the car, but we don't know fundamentally what does this look like to sit in a studio and make this whole thing churn and run. So I think it's interesting to bring a face and a name, and I mean, obviously you're on the radio so we can hear your voice and that kind of thing, but it's always different when you take people out of their element and you put them on camera, and now I could see the person and I can understand, like, I don't know, I've always liked the radio. I never really thought too hard about, like, what does it mean to be on the radio, but I'm going to listen to this and maybe learn.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So when you do bring these interesting people on, they're obviously in your studio for a reason. You have found them interesting. You found them fascinating.
Yep.
But sometimes you meet them, they don't always deliver on the show. They might not even be a good guest. So to you, Brandon, what makes a good podcast guest?
I think a good guest is somebody that has listened to a podcast, and specifically maybe even the podcasts they're about to be on, so that they understand the format, the flow. Are there going to be questions like in a more sterile kind of situation, or is this more conversational? So understanding the style and format of the show, knowing a little bit about the host, I think is useful for them as a guest, because, I know how to reply to you because I know what you need for your audience on, like, right now. Very meta.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the same thing for them. It's like sometimes people come on and they think podcast equals radio equals advertising equals I'm just going to sell my product or service, and just that's what we're going to talk about. And they're caught off guard for some reason. We have an email or two that go out that pretty explicitly say like what it's about, and it's conversational, not going to be teed up preliminary questions, anything of that nature. Here's a link if you want to listen to other ones, get an idea. Try to make it as frictionless as possible to know what's going on. It's still people, I totally get it. They probably lose the email or whatever, don't care. But yeah, they'll show up and they think it's something that it isn't. So I always think that it makes sense to walk in, and that's just me as a guest, like even right now, having a little bit of context is useful and helpful. So it makes it better for you, makes it better for me.
So you listen to Off the Cuff coming in on the way to the studio?
Not on the way. Not on the way.
Have you ever had somebody come into the studio that you were really excited to talk about, and they ended up not being as interesting as what you thought they were? Or maybe they just put on a bad interview?
Usually something would come to mind really fast because it was probably something that really stood out. But I don't think anybody has really stood out as like unbelievably dry and droll or they don't know what they're talking like. No, I don't think anybody really stands out.
I've noticed too that when you bring guests on your show, you try to diversify the way you interview. One of the ways that you will interview a guest might be sitting down on a couch across from them doing an interview. But another way, and I think it's very unique, is you do this thing with your guests called spin the block or spinning around the block or something like that, where you get on this little movable, transportable bar, and you pedal your way around Lexington with the guests.
I'm enjoying your description.
I don't know the exact name of it, but yes, describe this to the audience, what I'm talking about.
Okay, so we had a partnership with Big Blue Peddler.
Okay.
Big Blue Peddler is basically a party bike like you've seen going through downtown. Seats 14 people. I think there's like a bench seat in the back for 2, and then there's like 12 spots for people to sit down. It's BYOB, and you pedal and you go through town. There's a driver, of course.
Yes.
And so people will use that to go to games. They'll use it for a bachorette party, bachelor party. I think there was even a 13-year-old birthday party on there once, and so that's what it is. It's about a group coming together to celebrate and have a good time, celebrate Lexington, be able to go through town and that sort of thing. So Stephen Brown, who's the owner of Big Blue Peddler, approached me because he was a guest in March of 2020, I believe. And so we recorded in March, and I think just a few months later, he reached back out and he was like, "Hey, I have this idea. Like, what if you actually record some episodes on the bike?" I was like, "Man, that sounds interesting. That sounds cool." And that really aligned well because I'm always trying to figure out, like, there are rules to games. To the podcast game, there are certain things you got to do or look like or whatever that are just sort of standardized. Nobody really says them, but these things take off and take on a life of their own. And so we've come to know an SM7B to be like the standard microphone. It's what we're using right now. Why? Because somebody like Joe Rogan uses it, and everybody looks at Joe's podcast and goes, "That's what I need to buy."
Yeah.
And so everybody has that. That's what you assume you got to have. So I try to play within those rules of like, what is standard, what should it be, and then what can I do that's different that would just be interesting and unique. Yeah. Not for the sake of standing out, just for the sake of standing out, but that would just be fun, like genuinely interesting to me. And so when Stephen approached about the idea of actually recording on Big Blue Peddler, I was like, yeah, that's genius.
And I'm sure you always get looks around town when you're on that thing.
Oh, yeah. People are like, well, first of all, if we're recording at like 9 a.m, people are like, "What are you doing drinking at 9 a.m.?"
Are you all drinking at 9 a.m.?
Okay. Coffee. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But like the cool thing, we're sitting on there. It might be Marcus McWilson as our driver. He's a former safety for UK football. Great dude. He was on the podcast a few weeks ago with Smith Learning Services because he was part of that.
Does he work for Big Blue Peddler now?
He's done some work for them in the past. I don't know, if he's still with them or not.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know the total connection there.
Okay,
but yeah. So anyway, like literally, Marcus would drive usually, and we'd just go through town, and we have boom arms just like this with the microphone on it, and we're just recording. Got a couple GoPros up. There's one on the guest, one on me. Sometimes I'll have a cameraman and producer alongside. Like we had John Winters, who's the founder of Prohibition, that's done all the murals, like the Abe Lincoln, the Distillery District, like the big crazy thing on the side. There's
the man behind the painting there. That's cool.
He's been on twice, I think.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, he's really cool. He was one of the first guests, and then we revisited about a year ago or more now. And it was fun because we did it on the Peddler. We drove around town, and we basically went to like 3 or 4 different murals. Mm-hmm. So we rode from one to another, and then we'd get off the bike. So we had lav mics on for that, so we could just be portable and just get off the bike, literally never stop recording, just showing us walking up to the mural. We're talking about the artist and, why this particular, mural was on this particular building and that kind of thing. Then we get back on the bike and pedal to the next one. So interactive stuff like that. We had Wiley Cottle, actually. He's another mural artist in town. A lot of people would know him as well for like Crank and Boom in the Distillery District. He's done like the Fable, the Grove, all the big pink horse downtown on Main Street.
Yeah.
we did another interactive one with him. We have a partnership with Scout Guide Lexington, Jen Mueller, who's the editor. We went and we started the same kind of format. We started in his office, sitting at his desk. We had lav mics on. So we could just see like the space that he actually creates and starts designing and thinking and ideating. And then we never stopped recording, walk outside, get in my car, where it almost looks a little like comedians in cars getting coffee or whatever. We're all sitting in the car and we got GoPros on. And now we're literally driving and talking while we're going. And then we get out of the car and now we're looking at whatever mural. I don't even remember the first mural we went to.
Right.
But we went to his house because he was still building his house. And he was showing off some of the murals that were that really helped him take off even on TikTok, because he's got a mural on his ceiling in his piano room. That's really cool.
I only imagine what that looks like.
Yeah. So anyway, like went to his house, checked things out, and then we went downtown and checked out a couple of murals. So trying to make it really interactive whenever it's appropriate and we can.
It's very creative and it's very cool, and I think you guys should check that out because Brandon has visuals of his show on all of his platforms. You've had a lot of cool guests. Speaking of cool guests, I saw that you had a former boy band member on your show.
Oh,
from the Backstreet Boys.
I want to preface before you go down that.
Yes.
I didn't have Kevin on my show.
Oh.
I have to say that.
Okay.
I had a Lexington Business Show shirt on, which I didn't put two and two together when I posted the thing because I had other people ask.
Yeah.
I was recording a podcast for somebody else. It was for Cash Daniel and for Todd Lanter.
Okay. So you produced their show too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're not only is Brandon a producer or a podcast host, but Brandon's also a producer, folks. So you do have your own production company as well?
Yeah, Brandon 78. We do everything from video production, like corporate, internal kind of videos, all the way to social media content, podcast productions, things of that nature. Yeah.
Well, I've got a production for you to start working on. Okay. I have been looking for a production company to produce my reality show that I need produced. And the reality show is about me. Surprise, surprise. And it is about my journey, as we were talking about earlier in this interview, to making it to satellite radio. And I need somebody to produce that show for me.
Go.
So let's do it. So episode 1 is already filmed over there. But I think that's really cool that you do have a production company. So can people reach out to you with ideas, and if you like it, you'll latch onto it, or do you come up with the ideas and approach people?
No, it's generally helping support other people's ideas that they have.
Okay.
One of the things that we're going to do in a couple of weeks is go out to New Mexico with Adam Edlin. He ran for governor here a couple years ago. He's got a company called Edlin Renewables.
Yes.
They were just on the front page of the New York Times, and they got a big announcement coming out next week. If you go downtown on Main Street, right above the subway is Edlin Renewables. That's where his office is up top. And so he does renewable energy with solar panels and basically putting out solar panel farms, places where you can't really build or, like the land is dead where you can't even grow anything because of whatever reason. So they put solar out there trying to transform communities like Eastern Kentucky, Hobbs, New Mexico, places out in Montana, these places that are kind of anchored in old technology. They have no mechanism to really transfer into the new world. And they're injecting sort of a new life into these communities by presenting these opportunities along with other corporate partners to basically install these big renewable energy farms for these people to have new jobs, breathe new life into that community, bring a lot more money, and transform those spaces. So that's what they do. We're helping with we just build out a production kind of room and help to consult with putting that together, because there's a big announcement, like I said, coming out next week. There's going to be a lot of media that has to happen, whether it's an NBC affiliate in New Mexico maybe wants to interview him. Well, if he's going to be here, he needs a proper room. Normally you'd go to LEX 18, the affiliate, and go record there, but it takes time, it takes resources, if it's available, all that kind of stuff. So he wanted to take control of all that stuff. So we helped to install a room to where he could do all his live remote kind of things, go in there and create content potentially going to use us to go out and actually make content along with them on the road whenever they're doing stuff, help film documentaries, things of that nature. So, yeah, I mean, that's totally a him coming to us kind of situation. Yeah, like I said, Cash Daniel, he's former linebacker for UK.
Right.
Todd Lanter, former guard at UK. They had individual podcasts and things that we were helping to produce. And they decided that they were going to come together and do a show together. And so Fully Unscripted is a new podcast. It's actually, we recorded, I think, episode number 2 yesterday.
Yeah.
Which the Kevin Richardson, back to that for a moment. That's where that comes in because Cash and Kevin know each other because Kevin's a massive UK football fan.
Okay.
Knew Cash because he was a player.
Right.
They always kept up with each other. And Kevin just reached out to him some time ago. It was like, hey, we're coming to Rupp to perform. Are you going to be around? Like, let's hang. And they basically put it together where we were down at Scene-Cast. And like, I think it was only supposed to be like 20 minutes. And he gave us like 2 hours. They were just sitting there talking for 2 straight hours about, he gave the most in-depth answer to how the Backstreet Boys formed that you'll find anywhere.
Right.
He was like, I've never given out half this information ever.
Wow.
Some of this information I've said in sprinklings of different interviews, but I've never had the time to actually go into complete detail about this stuff. So that interview is coming out Friday of this week.
Yeah, that sounds
Fully Unscripted with Cash Daniel and Todd Lanter. So definitely check that out if you're into boy bands.
So
I know I'm like pushing their thing too, but
no, it's fine. I'm guessing that Cash was a Backstreet Boys fan growing up.
I think everybody was a Backstreet Boys fan.
I was more
even
instinct.
if you weren't. You know?
I was more instinct. Yeah. But looking back on it, I cannot. Well, we'll get off that.
Well, I'll say this real quick. So I think I have a large background in music as well, and Backstreet's Back, the album, came out about the same time that I started playing drum set and stuff in middle school.
Really?
And the only way that I learned to play drum set, I took lessons, but that was like once a week and very infrequent at first. And so I'd just go home and turn on whatever CDs I had available. And that was like one of the top 3 CDs that was on a constant loop. Because the beats are easy. It's pop music, relatively simple tempos. The forms were pretty easy to follow for a middle school kid especially. But that's how I learned to play drum set, was like listening to Kevin Richardson and the other guys, the Backstreet Boys, just on a loop, listening to that album over and over. So it was fun to go sit in a room with him. And like, I shared that story with him. I was like, thank you for, inspiring me, because you obviously, inspired a little kid in the 7th grade to go and get a doctorate in this stuff. And yeah, it was wild.
What's he like? Is he
Dude
cool?
is, I've met plenty of celebrity types, and most of them are pretty laid back and kind of cool. This is definitely a dude that's like, you're never bothering him. Mm-hmm. He is super, like I said, originally it was a 20-minute thing. It became an almost 2-hour conversation. In moments where you thought that maybe he didn't want to talk about a certain thing or whatever, he was totally open. There was nothing that was really avoided. He took every picture, signed every autograph that people wanted that would happen to be in that room with us. At the very end, he actually was dancing with Todd's girlfriend, Maria Montgomery, and her sister. The 3 of them were actually dancing together and doing like some of the dances from their tour.
Yeah, that had to be a dream come true for those girls. Brandon, I'm sure that my listeners are wanting to hear more about the host of the Lexington Business Show. Tell us information about you. How old are you?
I just turned 35 last Friday.
And you're married.
Yep.
You got a kid.
I have a almost 5-year-old and one that's going to be born literally any minute.
5-year-old, one any minute.
Well, any minute between now and October 6th.
And the 5-year-old boy, girl?
Boy.
What's his name?
Harrison.
I like that. And you got a daughter coming?
Yep.
Very cool. Was this planned or was this just whoopsie?
Yeah. That was planned.
And you and your family live in Lexington?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your just passion for Lexington has just bled over so much. You wanted to create a show about it. Your family lives here. Now, did you grow up here?
No, I came here, got a doctorate in music.
And that's what?
In percussion. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, started, so I grew up in South Carolina.
Yeah.
In Columbia. again, doing music stuff as a middle and high school kind of kid, which, whenever you're in school, there's different programs and things that happen on the college campus, which I was a part of. So I was on South Carolina's campus a lot as a kid. And then when it came time for college, well, I already had relationships with all the teachers and professors that were going to be important to me as a college music student. So that was like the only place I really applied because I already knew. And it was in my backyard. But I stayed on campus because I needed that separation from home to grow up. But
so I should be calling you Dr. Arvay.
Sure. It doesn't matter.
Have you ever thought about teaching?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Well, that's why you get a doctorate, is to teach at the college level.
I mean, for the most part.
Yeah, in music.
What else are you going to do?
I mean, you don't need a doctorate to stand in a room and practice a lot.
No.
But I went from South Carolina to Colorado State for 2 years, got a master's out there, and then I came to UK, got a doctorate in musical arts, Doctor of Musical Arts degree. So it's not a PhD, it's a DMA. PhDs are research-based, means you were a bookworm and read a bunch of stuff. DMA means I stood in a practice room and played a lot of instruments for a long time, and that's what that means.
Can you get that directly from a bachelor's, or do you have to have a master's?
No, you have to get a master's.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fully educated here, my man here, Brandon.
Stood in, and I know a lot of what feels like useless knowledge at this point about old music that most people don't care about.
So, nonsense.
That's a very, I don't know, pessimistic. I don't know if that's the right word, but
you're always busy. You've got your podcast, you've got your production company, you've got music. When you're not doing that, which is probably rare, what do you like to do? I'm sure you and your wife and your kid and your family, you probably like to watch a little TV, but maybe not. So what do you like to do?
Yeah, I mean, obviously family is massive outside of doing work. I like to draw very heavy lines when I can between those things. I mean, I love doing family stuff. Mm-hmm. So whether that's go to a zoo or go to a children's museum or something like that, those things are fun.
You just like being with your family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's important, it's a job. It's another hat to wear, being a dad. You know what I mean? It's an important role.
I don't, but I do.
Okay.
I don't, but I do.
Yeah, I get you.
Yes.
But I mean, I think actively parenting and being aware of your time being present. I'm very aware when I'm not present, which sucks a lot of times. You know what I mean? It's like if there's a work thing that's like I got to interrupt play to go do a work thing. I'm like, that sucks, but I have to do it. Like, do we want to eat or not? Like those become real choices. And I think, down the road, he would appreciate the eating part. He might not get it right now, but.
Yes. Tell everybody where they can listen to your show, how they can find it, and tell everybody also how they can follow you on social media.
Sure. So if you want to find Lexington Business Show, you can go to basically any platform, type in Lexington Business Show as a single word. Twitter is a platform I've not spent a ton of time with on that particular account. So you'll find that at Lex Business Show. Yeah, too many platforms and too many clients to service. Absolutely. Got to make even more of my own stuff. But yeah, so, and if you want to find me on Instagram, it's b.arvay, Brandon Arvay on most other platforms as well, whether it's Twitter, LinkedIn, I think is Brandon M. Arvay. You can find me there. I've got the same profile picture on everything. Okay. So if you find me on one, and you're not sure about the other, look for the picture. It's either me or it's not.
It's better than what I used to do. I used to have a different handle for every social media that I had.
Yeah.
So I finally broke down and just made one. So
it makes it frictionless, like
it does.
There's a little bit more security in knowing, is this the right person? Yeah,
It is right. Well, I want to thank you so much, Brandon, for taking the time to come on and do my show.
Yeah, man.
Got to do your show. You got to do my show. I hope you come back.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've got cool things coming up soon that you'll want to come back and talk about. Yeah. And again, you can listen to the Lexington Business Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or pretty much every major podcasting platform. Check out his visuals as well on Facebook, Instagram. Yeah. Are you on the tube as well? YouTube?
No.
No.
That's
Gotta
a whole
work.
monster. Oh, I know. Like
Gotta get on there.
You know what's really funny though is like we've built Lexington Business Show as a YouTube first concept.
Yeah.
But YouTube last as far as posting, just because there's like production, the time behind production and everything is just crazy. I'm spending my time, if I have to make a choice, I'm putting it on the smaller content on things like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, things like that, and not spending the time on the long forms at the moment, which is really funny.
Well,
Like,
it is.
It's built that way and not operated that way.
Ironic. Ironic, as Elena says.
Yeah.
But, ladies and gentlemen, that is Brandon Arvay with the Lexington Business Show and Branded 78. Thank you, Brandon, so much for being here.
Really appreciate the time. Thanks.